The grand assembly hall of the Galactic Academy stretched so far that its ceiling disappeared into artificial clouds. Jiho stood among thousands of students from 40 different species, trying not to stare at the being next to him. The creature looked like a walking crystal formation, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns across the polished floor. "Attention, cadets," a voice boomed through the hall. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The Centennial Survival Examination will now be explained." Jiho felt Hana tense beside him. On his other side, Doyen cracked his knuckles nervously. They were the only 3 humans in the entire assembly. 15 years ago, humanity had joined the galactic community. 15 years was nothing compared to the thousands of years most other species had been part of this civilization. A massive hologram materialized above the crowd. It showed Proctor Veltharin, the crystalline being who administered the academy. Her voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "Every 100 cycles, we test the finest students in the galaxy," Veltharin said. "This is not a classroom exercise. This is the survival examination. 3 teams will be selected. Each team will be transported to a Class 9 death world. You will have basic tools and nothing more. Survive for 30 standard days and you pass. Fail and—" She paused. "Well, failure is its own consequence." The hall filled with nervous sounds. Chittering, humming, low growls, the scrape of scales on stone. Class 9 death worlds were planets where everything existed to kill you. Toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, predatory wildlife, unstable geology. Even the galactic military avoided Class 9 worlds unless absolutely necessary. "The 3 teams have been selected based on your performance this cycle," Veltharin continued. The hologram shifted, showing 3 groups of students. Team Krell. A cluster of insectoid beings clicked their mandibles in unison. They looked like mantises standing upright, their exoskeletons gleaming green and black. Team Vexer. Massive reptilian students raised their heads, their scales rippling with colors that indicated confidence. And Team Human. Jiho saw his own face on the hologram. Hana looked tiny next to him, her engineering tools already clipped to her belt. Doyen grinned at the camera like this was a sporting event and not a potential death sentence. The hall erupted in noise. Most of it was laughter. A Krell student near Jiho chittered loudly. "The humans? The softskins from the weak world? They will not last 3 days." One of the Vexer students turned its massive head toward them. Its voice rumbled like grinding rocks. "Earth is barely Class 7. These creatures know nothing of true hostile environments." Hana's jaw tightened. Jiho put a hand on her shoulder and smiled. He had learned that smiling confused most alien species. They did not understand why humans showed teeth when they were not threatening to bite. "Each team will receive identical basic supplies," Veltharin continued, ignoring the commotion. 1 shelter kit, 1 tool kit, 1 medical kit, 1 water reclamation unit, and food rations for 7 days. After that, you must sustain yourselves from planetary resources. Your only other equipment will be a communicator for emergencies and monitoring devices so we can observe your progress. The hologram changed again, showing 3 different planets. The first was covered in dense purple jungle, with storms that looked like they could tear continents apart. The second was an endless desert under twin suns, where the sand itself seemed to move with predatory intent. The third made Jiho's stomach drop. It was a volcanic nightmare. Rivers of lava carved through black rock. Ash clouds blotted out the sun. Volcanic vents erupted randomly across the landscape like angry geysers. The temperature readouts showed swings from 50 degrees Celsius to -30, cycling every 6 hours. "That is Karsoth 7, Veltharin said, and Jiho knew immediately which planet they were getting. "Team Human, you will survive there or you will not survive at all." More laughter rippled through the hall. The Krell students were practically vibrating with amusement. Even some of the professors looked skeptical. Jiho raised his hand. The entire hall went silent. Students did not interrupt the proctor during the survival examination announcement. It simply was not done. "Yes, Cadet Jiho?" Veltharin's crystalline face turned toward him, refracting his image into a dozen smaller versions. "I have a question about the evaluation criteria," Jiho said, keeping his voice steady and polite. "Do we get bonus points for style?" For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The concept seemed to short-circuit every brain in the room. Then Veltharin spoke, her voice colder than before. "This is not a performance, Cadet. This is survival. Style is irrelevant. Life or death is the only measure. Understood, Proctor, Jiho said and sat down. Toyin leaned over and whispered, "Are you trying to get us expelled before we even start?" "Just gathering information," Jiho whispered back. But he was smiling. The briefing continued for another hour. They learned about the monitoring systems, the emergency extraction protocols, and the fact that in the 100-cycle history of this exam, 43 students had died. Not failed, died. The galactic community took survival seriously. When the assembly finally ended, the three humans walked together toward the preparation facilities. Around them, students from dozens of species moved in groups discussing strategies and showing off specialized survival adaptations. The Krell moved in perfect synchronization, their hive mind allowing them to think as one. The Vexer were already rationing their water intake, their bodies naturally adapted to extreme conservation. "We are going to die," Hana said quietly. It was not panic in her voice, just calculation. "That planet is designed to kill us in every possible way." "Maybe," Jiho said. "But humans have survived worse." "When?" Doyen asked. "When have humans survived worse than a volcanic death world with toxic air and temperature swings that can freeze or cook us every 6 hours?" Jiho stopped walking and turned to face his teammates. "Ice ages, volcanic winters, plague years, asteroid impacts, predators that could tear us apart. Our own planet tried to kill us for 3 million years. We are still here." Hana thought about this. Her engineering mind started working through problems, looking for solutions instead of dwelling on impossibilities. The lava flows might be predictable if we can map the geological stress points. The ash could provide mineral resources. The temperature swings are regular, which means we can prepare for them. "And we have something the Krell and Vexer do not," Doyen added, his optimism returning. "We are really good at being stubborn." They reached their assigned preparation room. Inside, their supplies were already laid out. The shelter kit looked flimsy. The tools were basic. The food rations were compressed bars that looked and probably tasted like cardboard. The medical kit would handle basic injuries, but nothing catastrophic. Jiho picked up one of the tools, testing its weight. "You know what the real difference is between us and them?" "What?" Hana asked, already examining the water reclamation unit and mentally cataloging ways to improve it. "The Krell will try to optimize their survival. They will build perfect structures and execute perfect strategies. The Vexer will endure through pure toughness. They will hunker down and outlast the planet through stubbornness." Jiho set the tool down and looked at his friends. "But we are going to do something crazy." "What?" Doyen asked. "We are going to try to enjoy ourselves." Hana stared at him. "Enjoy ourselves? On a death world? While everything tries to kill us?" "Exactly," Jiho said. "Because that is what humans do. When everything goes wrong, when the odds are impossible, when survival seems unlikely, we do not just survive. We live, we laugh, we make jokes. We find joy in the worst moments. That is our adaptation. That is our survival strategy." Doyen grinned. Style points, Jiho confirmed. They had 3 days to prepare before departure. 3 days to study Karsoth 7, to practice with their equipment, to prepare mentally for 30 days on a planet that wanted them dead. Other teams were drilling their coordination, testing their biological resistances, mapping optimal survival behaviors. The humans spent half their time preparing and half their time playing strategy games and telling jokes. When a Krell observer asked why they were wasting time on frivolous activities, Hana answered honestly, "Because when we are stressed and terrified, we will need to remember how to laugh. That might be the only thing that keeps us sane." The Krell did not understand. Neither did most of the academy. But they would. On the morning of departure, the 3 teams gathered at the transport facility. The Krell moved as one organism, already synchronized for their jungle world. The Vexers stood like statues, conserving energy, preparing for their desert trial. The humans did stretches and high-fived each other. "Last chance to back out," Veltharine said, giving the humans one final opportunity. "Karsoth 7 is beyond your species' experience." Jiho shouldered his pack. "Proctor, with respect, everything has been beyond our species' experience. We show up anyway." The transport activated, reality bent, and 3 humans stepped into hell with smiles on their faces. They had no idea if they would survive, but they were definitely going to try with style. The transport beam released them, and Jiho immediately fell to his knees coughing. The air burned going down his throat. It tasted like sulfur and hot metal and death. Around him, ash fell from the sky like gray snow, coating everything in a layer of grit that stuck to his skin. "Masks on!" Hana shouted, her voice muffled by the breathing apparatus she had already pulled from her pack. Jiho fumbled for his own mask, his fingers clumsy in the heat. The temperature felt like standing too close to an oven. Through the ash fall, he could see the landscape of Karsoth 7 stretching in every direction, and it looked exactly like the hell his grandmother used to warn him about. Black rock formations jutted from the ground like broken teeth. Rivers of orange lava carved glowing paths through the darkness. Every few seconds, a volcanic vent somewhere in the distance would shoot a pillar of fire into the ash-choked sky. The ground beneath their feet radiated heat through their boots. "Temperature is 43 degrees Celsius, Hana said, reading from her handheld scanner. "Atmospheric pressure is barely adequate. Oxygen levels are lower than Earth standard. Sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and about 12 other compounds that want to kill us." She paused. "And according to this, the temperature will drop to negative 28 degrees in approximately 3 hours when the planet rotates away from the sun." Doyen had his hands on his knees, breathing hard through his mask. "So we are going to cook, then freeze, then cook again every 6 hours for 30 days. "That is the situation," Jiho confirmed, finally getting his breathing under control. The mask helped, but the air still felt wrong in his lungs. Too hot, too thin, too toxic. Across the galaxy, on their respective death worlds, the other teams were also getting their first taste of survival. The Krell materialized in a jungle where the plants moved, not swayed by wind but moved with purpose, with hunger. The purple vegetation secreted digestive acids that could dissolve organic matter in seconds. Rain fell constantly, but the water was mildly acidic and had to be filtered 3 times before drinking. Storms rolled through every few hours, bringing winds that could tear limbs from trees and had already scattered half their supplies. The Krell captain immediately organized the team. They moved in perfect coordination, their hive mind allowing them to communicate without words. Within an hour, they had established a perimeter and begun construction on a shelter using their genetic memory of nest building. Their movements were efficient, calculated, optimized. But efficiency could not stop the jungle. A vine-like plant had already infiltrated their perimeter, its thorns carrying a paralytic toxin. 2 Krell were immobilized before they identified the threat. They would survive, but it was a harsh lesson. This world would test them in ways their hive mind had never encountered. On the desert world, the Vexor team faced different challenges. The twin suns beat down without mercy. The sand was not just sand, but microscopic crystalline particles that could shred exposed skin. Beneath the surface, things moved. Large things, predatory things that had evolved to hunt in an ocean of silicon. The Vexor commander ordered immediate excavation. They would go deep, below the hunting grounds of the sand creatures, and establish a bunker that could withstand the extreme heat and the predators. Their thick scales protected them from the worst of the sun's radiation, and their bodies naturally conserved water with incredible efficiency. They worked in silence, moving massive amounts of sand with their powerful limbs. When the first sand creature attacked, drawn by the vibrations of their digging, they fought it off with brutal efficiency. But the effort cost them precious water and energy. The commander immediately reduced their ration schedule. They would move less, eat less, drink less. Survival through endurance. Survival through making themselves small enough that death might overlook them. Back on Karsoth 7, the humans were arguing. "We need shelter immediately," Hana insisted. "In 3 hours, the temperature will drop 70 degrees. We will freeze without proper protection." "The shelter kit will not be enough," Doyen said, examining the thin thermal fabric they had been provided. "This is designed for mild temperature variations, not this extreme." Jiho was not listening to them. He was walking in slow circles, his eyes scanning the volcanic landscape. The ashfall made visibility poor, but he could make out the basic geography. They were in a valley between 2 volcanic formations. Lava flows had carved channels through the rock, some old and cooled, others still glowing with heat. "Jiho," Hana called. "We need to make decisions now." "I am making decisions," Jiho said. "I am deciding that we should not do what the other teams are doing." What do you mean? Doyen asked. Jiho turned to face them, ash coating his hair and shoulders. The Krell will build a perfect shelter and defend it. The Vexer will dig in and endure. Both of those strategies mean fighting against the planet. But what if we work with it instead? Hana frowned behind her mask. Work with a volcanic death world? How? Look at the heat sources. Jiho pointed at the glowing lava channels. Constant heat. And look there. He pointed at the volcanic formations. Those are lava tubes, natural tunnels formed by ancient lava flows. They will be insulated from the temperature extremes. Doyun's eyes widened. You want to live inside a volcano? I want to live inside a stable geological formation that provides natural shelter and heat regulation, Jiho corrected, which happens to be volcanic in origin. There is a difference. Hana pulled out her scanner and started analyzing the nearest formation. Her engineer's mind immediately saw what Jiho was suggesting. If we can find a stable tube system, it would protect us from the temperature swings. The rock itself would maintain a more consistent temperature, and if there are geothermal vents, we could potentially use them for heat and even power generation. Or they could collapse and bury us in molten rock, Doyen pointed out. That is also possible, Jiho admitted, but staying exposed out here is certain death. A lava tube system is uncertain death, which is mathematically better. They spent the next 2 hours exploring while the temperature continued to climb. At its peak, the heat reached 49 degrees Celsius. Jiho's clothes were soaked with sweat. His water ration was already depleting faster than planned, but he kept searching. Finally, Hana's scanner detected a promising formation. A network of lava tubes penetrated deep into one of the volcanic structures. The entrance was partially blocked by cooled rock, but they could clear it. The tubes showed stable temperature readings in multiple chambers at different depths. This could work, Hana said, her voice carrying a hint of excitement that seemed insane given their circumstances. If we establish our base in the deeper chambers, we will be protected from the surface temperature variations. There are even geothermal vents that we could tap for power. Let us move, Jiho ordered. We have less than an hour before the freeze starts. They worked frantically, moving their supplies into the lava tube system. The entrance required clearing debris, which was back-breaking work in the thin atmosphere and extreme heat. Doyen used tools from their kit to create a wider opening. Hana mapped the interior, identifying the safest chambers. Jiho coordinated their efforts, making sure they did not forget any critical supplies. 40 minutes later, the temperature began to drop. Fast. They huddled in their chosen chamber. Deep, enough to be protected but close enough to the entrance for emergency escape. The shelter kit fabric was deployed across the chamber opening to create an insulated space. Their supplies were organized. The water reclamation unit was set up near a small geothermal vent where condensation naturally formed. Outside, the temperature plummeted. Through the tube entrance, they could hear the wind picking up, howling across the volcanic landscape. The ashfall turned to frozen particles that clattered against the rock. Inside their chamber, wrapped in the thermal fabric and heated by the geothermal warmth, the temperature held steady at a survivable 20 degrees Celsius. We did it, Doyen said, disbelief in his voice. We actually found shelter on the first day. Hana was already examining the geothermal vent more closely. This vent produces consistent heat. If I can rig up a basic thermal converter using parts from our toolkit, we could generate enough power to charge our equipment and maybe even supplement our heating. Food is still a problem, Jiho noted. We have 7 days of rations. After that, we need to find something edible on this planet. On a volcanic death world? Doyun laughed, but it was not a happy sound. What could possibly live here? Over the next 5 days, they established their routine. Wake when the external temperature was climbing toward the heat peak. Work on improving their shelter during the moderate temperature windows. Return deep into the tubes during the extremes. Hana proved to be invaluable. She rigged the thermal converter, giving them power. She created a filtration system using volcanic rock and their basic supplies, improving their water quality. She even started experimenting with the ash, discovering it contained mineral compounds that could be useful. Doyen mapped the surrounding area during the brief, comfortable periods. He found a strange type of lichen growing near some of the cooler lava flows. It was black and crusty and looked completely unappetizing, but Hana's scanner showed it was not toxic to humans. It would not provide much nutrition, but it was something. Jiho focused on understanding the planet's patterns. He tracked the volcanic eruptions, noting their frequency and locations. He studied the wind patterns, the ashfall variations, the way the temperature cycled. Everything on Karsoth 7 followed patterns. Violent, deadly patterns, but patterns nonetheless. On day 7, their food rations ran out. They had supplemented with the lichen, which tasted exactly as bad as it looked, but it kept them alive. Hana had also discovered that certain thermophilic bacteria grew in the geothermal vents. By cultivating these bacteria and processing them, they could create a protein-rich supplement. It was disgusting, but it was survival. At the Galactic Academy, the monitoring feeds were being watched by dozens of instructors and students. The Krell team was struggling with their jungle world, spending most of their energy fighting off hostile plant life and dealing with parasitic organisms that could infiltrate their hive mind. They were surviving, but barely, and their perfect efficiency was being worn down by constant novel threats. The Vexer team had successfully established their bunker, but they had lost 2 members to sand predators. They sat in darkness, moving minimally, eating minimally, existing minimally. It was survival through reduction, through making themselves as small and insignificant as possible. The human team had turned a section of volcanic tubes into what looked disturbingly like a home. They had named their base, joking that they should charge rent for the Volcano View Resort. They worked. They explored. They even laughed sometimes when something went absurdly wrong. A krill instructor, breathing methane through a specialized apparatus, analyzed the human data. They are using 17% more energy than the Vexer team. This is inefficient. They will burn out before the 30 days conclude. But Orthix, an ancient sage mind who had studied Earth's admission files, watched the feed more carefully. No, watch their patterns. They are not optimizing for minimal energy use. They are optimizing for something else. What else is there besides survival? The krill asked. Orthix did not answer immediately. On the screen, Jiho was teaching Doyun and Hana a game from Earth, something called rock, paper, scissors, to decide who would collect the day's bacteria harvest. They were laughing. They are optimizing for remaining human, Orthix finally said. They are maintaining joy even in hell. I am not certain if that is brilliant or insane. It is irrelevant, the krill insisted. Joy does not help you survive. Orthix thought about Earth, about ice ages and volcanic winters and plagues, about a species that had survived despite everything. Perhaps, the sage mind said quietly, or perhaps joy is exactly what helps them survive. On Karsoth 7, the humans settled in for another night cycle, another freeze, another rotation of their volcanic hell. They had survived the first week. 23 more days to go. They had no idea what was coming, but they were starting to believe they might actually make it. Day 15 arrived with what should have been routine. The Krell team had settled into a defensive pattern on their jungle world. The Vexer team remained buried in their desert bunker. The humans had established their volcanic base and were surviving, against all reasonable expectations. But the galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. The Krell captain stood at the center of their camp, surrounded by 43 members of the hive team. Their shelter had been rebuilt twice after storms destroyed the initial structures. Their food stores were carefully rationed. Their water filtration systems operated at maximum efficiency. Everything was calculated, optimized, perfect. Then the jungle introduced them to something their genetic memory had never encountered. The parasite was microscopic. It drifted on the humid air seeking hosts. When it found the Krell, it did not attack their bodies. It attacked their hive mind. The connection that made them efficient, that allowed them to think as one organism, became their weakness. The infected Krell began receiving false signals. Commands that seemed to come from the hive captain but did not. Instructions that contradicted each other. The perfect synchronization that defined their species started to break down. North perimeter. Reinforce the barrier, the captain commanded through the hive link. But 3 Krell heard. North perimeter, dismantle the barrier. They obeyed what they thought was a hive command. The barrier came down. A predatory plant, something with thorns like spears and sap like acid, pushed through the opening. Chaos erupted. The hive tried to respond, but the parasite had spread through their shared consciousness. Every command was corrupted, translated differently by different members. The Krell were fighting the jungle and fighting their own confusion. The captain made the hardest decision of its life. It severed the hive connection partially, reducing the bandwidth of their shared thoughts to limit the parasite's spread. The Krell had never operated without full hive synchronization. They stumbled, uncertain, inefficient. They were surviving, but their perfect optimization was shattered. On the desert world, the Vexor team had different problems. Their bunker was deep and secure. They had successfully avoided most predator encounters by remaining still and quiet. Their rations were carefully distributed. Every movement was calculated to conserve energy. But on day 15, the sand started behaving strangely. Deep vibrations rolled through the desert, originating from somewhere beneath the planet's crust. The sand began to liquefy in waves, turning solid ground into flowing quicksand without warning. The Vexor bunker, so carefully constructed, started to collapse. Sand poured through cracks in their barriers. The support structures shifted and groaned under unexpected pressure. The commander ordered immediate evacuation to a higher position, but moving meant exposing themselves to the surface heat and predators. They had optimized for endurance in a fixed position. Mobility had been sacrificed for protection. They fought their way upward, leaving behind most of their supplies. 2 more Vexor were lost to sand predators attracted by their movement. The survivors reached a rocky outcropping and huddled there, exposed to the twin suns. Their carefully managed resources now buried beneath tons of liquefied sand. They were surviving, but barely. Their strategy of making themselves small and insignificant had failed when the planet itself became unstable. On Karsoth 7, the humans were having breakfast. Breakfast consisted of processed bacteria, crushed lichen, and water that tasted faintly of sulfur despite Hana's best filtration efforts. "This is disgusting," Doyen said. But he ate it anyway. "It has protein," Hana replied, examining her scanner, "and some minerals we need. It will keep us alive." "Alive and miserable," Doyen muttered. Jiho was not paying attention to the food complaints. He was studying his handmade map of the volcanic activity patterns. Over the past 2 weeks, he had been tracking every eruption, every vent activation, every seismic tremor. The map was covered in notations and calculations. "The eruptions follow a pattern," he said suddenly. Hana looked up from her bacteria cultivation experiment. "What kind of pattern?" "Tidal pattern." Jiho spread the map where they could both see it. Karsoth 7 has 3 moons. The gravitational interactions create stress points in the planet's crust. The volcanic activity follows these stress points as they rotate. If I am right, I can predict where and when the major eruptions will occur. Doyen stopped complaining about breakfast. "That would be incredibly useful. We could avoid dangerous areas." More than that, Jiho's eyes were bright with an idea. "We could use them. Use volcanic eruptions?" Hana asked carefully. "Jiho, have you been breathing too much sulfur?" "Listen." Jiho pointed at a location on his map. "There is a large volcanic formation 3 kilometers east of here. According to my calculations, it is building toward a major eruption in approximately 6 days. When it erupts, the lava flow will create new heated areas and the ash will carry specific minerals we could harvest. Or it will kill us," Doyen pointed out. "Only if we are careless," Jiho said. "But if we are smart, we can prepare for it and benefit from it." At the academy, the monitoring feeds had become required viewing for multiple departments. What had started as a standard survival examination had become something more interesting. 3 different species, 3 different survival strategies, 3 different results. The Krill instructor still insisted the humans were being inefficient. They explore too much. They take unnecessary risks. They use energy on activities that do not directly contribute to survival. But more instructors were starting to agree with Orthix. The ancient sage mind had been studying Earth's history deeply, accessing every file in the galactic database about humanity. "Do you know what I discovered?" Orthix asked during one of the viewing sessions. "Earth has experienced 5 major extinction events. Catastrophes that killed 70 to 90% of all species on the planet. Yet life persisted. Life adapted. Life found ways to continue." "Many planets experience extinction events," the Krill replied. "Yes, but humans evolved during a period of extreme climate instability. Orthix continued. For the past 3 million years, Earth has cycled between ice ages and warm periods. Volcanic super-eruptions, asteroid impacts, massive flooding, droughts that lasted centuries. The environment that created humanity was constantly trying to kill everything, and humans did not just survive this. They thrived in it. They spread across every continent, adapted to every climate, learned to live in conditions that should have been impossible. On the monitoring screen, Jiho was explaining his eruption prediction theory to his team. They were not just surviving. They were studying their death world, learning its patterns, finding ways to turn its threats into opportunities. The humans are treating Karsoth 7 like it is a puzzle to solve, another instructor observed. Not an enemy to defeat or endure. A puzzle. That is because humans are insane, the Krill insisted. Or brilliant, Orthix countered. Watch. Over the next days, the humans proved both assessments might be correct. Hana successfully created a crude forge using a lava flow. It was dangerous, requiring them to work near molten rock while wearing their thermal protection suits at the edge of failure. But it allowed them to process minerals from the volcanic ash and create better tools. They upgraded their shelter supports, improved their water collection system, even created some basic cooking implements. Doyun discovered that the lichen grew in different varieties in different locations. Some varieties were slightly less disgusting than others. More importantly, he found that certain lichens had different mineral contents. By varying their diet, they could get better nutrition. He created a map of lichen locations and established a rotation schedule to prevent overharvesting. Jiho continued refining his eruption predictions. He was getting better at reading the seismic patterns. On day 17, he predicted a medium eruption from a vent 7 kilometers south. He was off by 3 hours and 2 kilometers, but the eruption happened. They could use this information to stay safe and to position themselves for resource gathering. They were not just surviving. They were adapting. They were learning. They were turning Karsoth 7 from an enemy into an environment they could navigate. On day 17, Jiho made his biggest prediction yet. There is a major eruption building in the formation I showed you before. It will happen in 4 days. The lava flow will create new obsidian deposits, and the ash cloud will be rich in minerals we need. How close do we need to be to harvest these resources? Hana asked. Close, Jiho admitted. Uncomfortably close. They spent 3 days preparing. They plotted escape routes. They tested their thermal suits to their limits. They cached emergency supplies in multiple locations. Hana calculated the wind patterns to predict where the ash would fall most heavily. On the predicted day, they positioned themselves on a ridge overlooking the volcanic formation. They were 2 kilometers away, which felt simultaneously too close and too far. Too close to be safe if something went wrong, too far to efficiently gather resources if something went right. Jiho watched his calculations tick down. 30 minutes, he said. They waited. The planet rumbled beneath them. Heat radiated from the formation. Ash fell continuously, as it always did, coating everything in gray powder. 10 minutes, Jiho said, checking his calculations again. Doyun was nervous. What if you are wrong? Then we waste a day sitting on a ridge, Jiho replied. What if I am right? The emergency communication channel crackled. It was the shared frequency that all 3 teams could monitor. The Krell captain's voice came through, translated by the universal communicator. Human team, we are detecting massive seismic activity on your world. You should seek deep shelter immediately. Jiho pressed the transmit button. Thank you for the warning, Krell team. We are aware of the activity. We are monitoring it. You are monitoring it? The Krell captain sounded confused. You should be hiding from it. Different strategies, Jiho said simply. The Vexor commander's voice joined the channel. The humans are either brave or foolish. We cannot determine which. Both, Hana muttered quietly. Definitely both. Then the eruption happened. The volcanic formation split open like a wound. Magma exploded upward in a column of fire that rose kilometers into the ash-choked sky. The sound was like the end of the world. The shockwave rippled across the landscape, knocking loose rocks and sending up clouds of ash. The humans watched from their ridge as lava fountained into the air. Did you see that spray? Jiho shouted over the roar. That was at least 10 meters high. Why are you excited about this? Doyun yelled back. We could die. But look. Jiho pointed as lava began flowing down the formation side, following the path he had predicted. It is going exactly where I calculated. The flow will create a new obsidian field. Hana was already positioning her collection equipment. She had created long-handled containers that could gather ash samples without exposing them to the worst of the heat. The wind was carrying the ash cloud toward them, and she needed to catch it at the right moment. The Academy monitoring station watched in stunned silence as the humans worked around an active volcanic eruption, not fleeing from it, not hiding from it, working around it. "This is unprecedented," an instructor breathed. "This is insane," the Krill insisted. "This is human," Orthix said quietly. The eruption continued for hours. The humans maintained their position, gathering resources, taking measurements, documenting everything. When the main eruption finally subsided, they carefully approached the new lava flow, still glowing orange and radiating intense heat but cooling slowly at its edges. Hana used their upgraded tools to extract samples of fresh obsidian. The volcanic glass would be incredibly useful. It could be shaped into sharper cutting tools than anything in their kit. It could be used to improve their shelter. It had dozens of applications. They returned to their base exhausted, covered in ash, carrying containers of valuable resources. They had survived. More than that, they had succeeded. On the communication channel, the Krell captain transmitted again. "Human team, your actions were irrational. Volcanic eruptions should be avoided, not approached." Jiho smiled as he replied, "Krell team, we appreciate your concern, but we have a saying on Earth. When life gives you lava, make obsidian." There was a long pause before the Krell responded. "That saying makes no sense." "It does to us," Jiho said, and signed off. That night, huddled in their lava tube base with their new resources organized around them, the humans allowed themselves a moment of satisfaction. Halfway through the examination, still alive, actually progressing. "Do you think the Academy understands what we are doing?" Doyen asked. "No," Hana said. "I do not think they understand at all." "Good," Jiho said. "Let us keep surprising them." Day 18 dawned with its usual cycle of extreme temperatures. The humans emerged from their base to begin another day of survival. But they were not just surviving anymore. They were living, even in hell, especially in hell, because that was what humans did. Day 22 began like every other day on Karsoth 7. The temperature climbed toward its scorching peak. Ash fell from the perpetually darkened sky. The ground radiated heat through their boots. Jiho, Hana, and Doyen had adapted to this routine so completely that they barely noticed the discomfort anymore. But this day would be different. This day, the galaxy would throw something at them that no amount of preparation could fully anticipate. The first sign was a change in the seismic patterns. Jiho noticed it during his morning monitoring routine. The tremors were different. Not stronger, just different. The rhythm was wrong. "Hana," he called. "Look at these readings." Hana came over, still eating her breakfast of processed bacteria. She studied the scanner, her expression shifting from curious to concerned. "That is not normal activity for Karsoth 7. "What does that mean?" Doyen asked. "It means something else is happening," Hana said slowly. "Something beyond the normal volcanic patterns." At the Academy, the monitoring stations were experiencing their own crisis. Advanced sensors had detected what the humans were just beginning to discover. A cosmic alignment of incredible rarity was occurring. The three exam worlds, positioned in different star systems, were all experiencing unusual gravitational effects simultaneously. Proctor Veltherin called an emergency council meeting. Instructors from every department gathered in the observation chamber, watching the data streams from all three planets. "The probability of this alignment is 1 in 300 million, an astrophysics instructor reported. "The gravitational interactions are causing extreme tidal stresses on all three worlds simultaneously." "What is the threat assessment?" Veltherin asked. "Extinction-level events," the instructor said grimly. "The jungle world is experiencing catastrophic flooding as underground seas breach the surface. The desert world's sand is liquefying across entire continents. And Karsoth 7, the instructor paused. "The volcanic activity is increasing exponentially. We are predicting a super eruption within the next 48 hours. The council chamber erupted in urgent discussion. This was not part of the examination. This was a natural disaster of planetary scale. "We must authorize emergency extraction for all teams," one instructor insisted. These are no longer survivable conditions. Veltherin's crystalline form refracted the chamber lights as she considered the situation. Prepare extraction protocols. Notify all teams. They will be given the choice to evacuate or continue. On the jungle world, the Krell team was barely holding together. The flooding had destroyed what remained of their camp. They were scattered across different high points, the hive connection so disrupted by the parasite and the chaos that they could barely coordinate. When the extraction offer came through, the captain accepted immediately. They had survived the examination by its original parameters, but this new threat was beyond their capacity. The Vexor team, exposed on their rocky outcropping, watched as the desert liquefied into an ocean of flowing sand. Predators that had been isolated underground were now being forced to the surface by the instability. The remaining team members were exhausted, depleted, barely functioning. The commander accepted extraction without hesitation. They had endured as much as their species could endure. On Karsoth 7, the extraction offer reached the human team as they were trying to understand the seismic changes. Veltherin's voice came through their communicator. Human team, we are detecting planetary instability beyond normal examination parameters. You are authorized for emergency extraction. This is not a failure. The examination conditions have exceeded safe limits. Jiho looked at Hana and Doyun. They were exhausted, covered in ash, surviving on minimal rations and bacteria paste. They had been living in a volcanic hellscape for 22 days. And now they were being told it was about to get much worse. What do you think? Jiho asked his team. Hana pulled up her scanner, studying the seismic data. If this is what I think it is, the volcanic activity will increase massively. Our base might not be safe. The lava flows could change course. The ashfall will intensify. The temperature variations might become more extreme. So it will be worse than it already is, Doyun summarized. Much worse, Hana confirmed. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on them as heavily as Karsoth 7's thin atmosphere. We have come this far, Doyun said quietly. 8 more days. We are so close. Close to what? Hana asked. Completion. Is completing a test worth dying for? It is not about the test, Jiho said. He was looking at the volcanic landscape around them, the world that had tried to kill them every single day. It is about proving something. Proving what? Hana demanded. That humans are stubborn? The galaxy already knows that. No, Jiho shook his head. Proving that we can face the impossible and still choose to move forward. The Krell optimized. The Vexor endured. But we found a way to live here. Even in hell we found moments of joy. We laughed. We made jokes. We gave our base a ridiculous name. That is what makes us different. It also might be what kills us, Hana pointed out. Maybe, Jiho admitted. But I did not come to the Galactic Academy to be just another species that survives. I came to show them what humanity is capable of. And we are capable of looking at impossible odds and saying, watch this. Doyun grinned. Style points, Jiho confirmed. Hana looked at both of them, at Jiho with his impossible optimism, and Doyun with his unshakable loyalty, at the volcanic world around them that had become strange and terrible home. She thought about going back to the academy, to safety, to normal food and breathable air. Then she thought about going back as the team that gave up when it got hard. We need to run calculations, she said finally. If we stay, we need a survival plan for the worst-case scenario. I am not agreeing to die for style points, Jiho. I am agreeing to try to survive for them. That is all I am asking, Jiho said. He activated the communicator. Proctor Veltherin, this is the human team. We appreciate the extraction offer, but we are declining. We will complete the examination. There was a long pause before Veltherin responded. Cadet Jiho, I must emphasize the danger. The projected volcanic activity exceeds anything you have experienced. The survival probability is significantly reduced. Understood, Proctor, Jiho said. But we have run the numbers. We believe we can handle this. At the academy, Veltherin turned to her council. The humans are refusing extraction. They are fools, the Krill instructor said immediately. But Orthix was studying Earth's files again. No, they are human. There is a difference. What difference? Another instructor asked. Refusing to evacuate from a super eruption is simply illogical. Orthix displayed an image on the chamber's main screen. It showed Earth, the small blue planet that had produced these confusing creatures. Earth's atmosphere was once toxic. Its climate was once completely unstable. Its surface was bombarded by asteroids. Volcanic activity reshaped continents. Ice ages came and went. And through all of this, the species that would become human did not just survive. They explored. They expanded. They thrived. When conditions were at their worst, humans did not become smaller. They became more. That explains their history, the Krill said. It does not justify this decision. Perhaps not, Orthix agreed. But it explains why they made it. On Karsoth 7, the humans were not wasting time on philosophical discussions. They were planning. Hana calculated the projected lava flows based on the increased seismic activity. Their current base would likely be safe from direct lava, but the ashfall and temperature variations would intensify significantly. Doyen scouted alternative locations in case they needed to evacuate quickly. He found another lava tube system 5 kilometers north that was at higher elevation and might provide better protection from the worst effects. Jiho studied his eruption predictions, trying to understand what a super eruption would mean. The scale was beyond anything they had dealt with. But scale was just a number. Fire was fire. Rock was rock. They had learned to work with both. Over the next 24 hours, the planet confirmed their worst fears. The seismic activity increased steadily. New volcanic vents opened across the landscape. The ashfall became so heavy that visibility dropped to less than 50 meters. The temperature swings became more violent, ranging from 60 degrees Celsius to -35. But the humans adapted. They moved their critical supplies to Doyen's alternative location. They created a quick evacuation plan with clear signals. Hana reinforced their shelter supports using obsidian and volcanic rock. Jiho mapped the changing lava flows, updating his predictions constantly. On day 24, the predicted super eruption began to build. The volcanic formation they had studied before was the source. But this time it was not just one vent. The entire formation was preparing to explode. "This is it," Hana said, watching her scanner readings spike. "The big one. How big?" Doyen asked. "Big enough to reshape the entire region," Hana said. "The lava flow will be massive. The ash cloud will block what little sunlight we get. The shockwave alone could be dangerous." "Where is the safest place?" Jiho asked. Hana ran calculations. "There's no safe place on Karsoth 7 right now. But our best chance is to get to high ground and away from the predicted lava flows. The alternative site Doyen found is perfect. But we need to move now." They grabbed their essential supplies and started moving. The journey that should have taken 2 hours took 4 because of the heavy ashfall and the unstable ground. Every few minutes, a new tremor would shake the planet, sometimes strong enough to knock them off their feet. Finally, they reached the alternative lava tube system. It was higher, more exposed to the wind, but it was away from the primary danger zone. They set up their emergency shelter and waited. The super eruption, when it came, was beyond anything they had imagined. The volcanic formation exploded with the force of multiple nuclear weapons. Magma shot kilometers into the sky. The shockwave rolled across the landscape like a physical wall. The sound was so loud that their communicators shut down temporarily to protect their eardrums. But Hana had calculated correctly. The lava flow went in the direction she had predicted. The shockwave, while powerful, was survivable at their distance. The ash cloud was massive, but their shelter held. And through it all, through the violence of a planet tearing itself apart, Jiho started laughing. "Why are you laughing?" Doyen shouted over the roar. "Because we calculated this," Jiho shouted back. "A super eruption. And we calculated where to be. Do you understand how insane that is?" Hana, despite her fear, despite the rational part of her brain screaming that they were all going to die, found herself laughing too. "We are using math to survive a volcanic apocalypse. That is the most human thing ever," Doyen added, and then he was laughing too. At the academy, the monitoring station watched 3 humans laughing in the middle of a planetary catastrophe. The feeds showed them huddled in their emergency shelter, surrounded by volcanic devastation, laughing like they were at a party. "I do not understand," the Krill instructor said. "They should be terrified." "They probably are terrified," Orthix replied. "But they are also, I believe the human word is thrilled. They are experiencing terror and joy simultaneously. The humans have a term for this. They call it adrenaline. Why would evolution create a species that enjoys life-threatening situations?" Another instructor asked. "Because maybe," Orthix said thoughtfully, Enjoyment is a survival strategy. Fear tells you to hide. Joy tells you to engage. Humans do both. They are terrified of the volcano, so they prepare carefully. But they are also thrilled by the challenge, so they maintain the will to continue. The super eruption lasted for 6 hours. When it finally subsided, the landscape of Karsoth 7 had changed completely. New lava flows covered the old terrain. The ashfall had created drifts meters deep. The temperature patterns had shifted with the new volcanic activity. But the humans were alive. Exhausted, covered in ash, breathing hard through their masks, but alive. 6 more days, Doyun said. 6 more days, Hana agreed. Jiho looked at the transformed landscape. You know what? I think we are going to make it. I think we are already made it, Hana corrected. Everything else is just confirmation. They had refused evacuation. They had survived a super eruption. They had turned survival into living. And the galaxy was watching. Day 30 arrived with surprisingly little drama. The super eruption had passed. The planetary instability had settled back into Karsoth 7's normal hostile patterns. The humans had survived, though they looked nothing like the eager cadets who had transported to this world a month ago. Jiho's hair was permanently coated in ash, despite daily attempts to clean it. His face was thinner, marked by small scars from volcanic glass and heat burns that had healed badly. His eyes, though, were brighter than they had been at the start. Alert. Alive. Hana's hands were rough and calloused from working with volcanic rock and crude tools. Her engineering scanner was held together with improvised repairs, but she had learned more about practical survival engineering in 30 days than she had in 3 years at the academy. Doyen had lost weight like they all had, but his movements were confident. He knew this world now, its patterns, its dangers, its strange hostile beauty. He had mapped more of Karsoth 7 than any galactic survey had ever achieved. When the transport beam activated at exactly the 30th day mark, they stood together in their battered thermal suits, holding their few remaining possessions. The Volcano View Resort, as they had named their base, remained behind, a testament to human stubbornness carved into volcanic rock. The transport pulled them away from Karsoth 7, away from the ash and the heat and the constant threat of death. Back to the academy. The arrival bay was crowded. Word had spread throughout the academy that the human team had refused extraction and survived the planetary catastrophe. Students and instructors from dozens of species had gathered to witness their return. Jiho stepped off the transport platform first, followed by Hana and Doyun. They blinked in the normal lighting, breathed the clean air, felt temperature-controlled atmosphere for the first time in a month. It felt strange, almost too comfortable. The Krell team stood near the front of the crowd. They had been extracted on day 23, before the flooding consumed their jungle world entirely. The Krell captain approached Jiho, its insectoid form moving in the precise coordinated way that defined its species. Human Jiho, the Krell captain said through its translator. We must share something with you. The captain extended its foreleg, and through the hive link it transmitted memories directly to a viewing screen for all to see. The crowd watched as the Krell team's experience played out. The efficient construction of their camp, the perfect coordination of their movements, but also the fear, the desperation when the parasite invaded their hive mind, the panic when the flooding began, the relief when extraction came. We survived by becoming smaller, the Krell captain said. We retreated into our efficiency. We optimized away everything that was not essential, including hope. We waited for death to pass us by. The captain's mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. But you survived by becoming more. You explored. You adapted. You found joy even in suffering. This is not how we understand survival, but it is effective. A Vexor commander pushed through the crowd. Its massive reptilian form bore new scars from the desert world. 2 members of their team had not returned. The commander's scales were dull from exhaustion and dehydration. The humans invited death to dance, the commander said, its voice like grinding stone. We Vexor pride ourselves on endurance. We can outlast almost anything through sheer stubborn resilience. But endurance is not the same as living. We waited in our bunker for the desert to forget about us. You went out and made the volcano your home. The commander's head lowered slightly, a gesture of respect among its people. There is strength in that which we did not anticipate. Proctor Veltharin materialized at the center of the arrival bay, her crystalline form refracting light in brilliant patterns. The formal evaluation will now commence, she announced. All 3 teams performed admirably under impossible conditions. The planetary catastrophe was not part of the planned examination, yet it provided an unprecedented opportunity to observe survival strategies under extreme duress. A massive display screen activated, showing performance metrics for all 3 teams. Jiho saw the numbers and had to suppress a laugh. By every traditional measure, the human team had scored lowest. Energy efficiency. Krell team first, Vexor team second, human team third, Veltharin read. Resource conservation. Vexor team first, Krell team second, human team third. Shelter stability index. Krell team first, Vexor team second, human team third. The Krill instructor looked vindicated. See? The numbers confirmed what it had said from the beginning. The humans were inefficient, but Veltharin continued. Days survived on original rations. Vexor team 30, Krell team 23, human team 7. Days survived on planet after emergency extraction offer. Vexor team 0, Krell team 0, human team 8. Successful adaptation to catastrophic environmental changes. Krell team partial, Vexor team partial, human team complete. The display shifted to show different metrics. Ones that measured not just efficiency but effectiveness. Not just survival but thriving. Resource innovation, human team first, Veltharin said. Environmental adaptation, human team first. Predictive modeling of planetary systems, human team first. Psychological resilience, human team first. Then Orthix, the ancient sage mind, moved to the center of the bay. Its presence commanded immediate silence. Orthix had been part of the galactic community for over 2,000 years and had evaluated hundreds of species for Academy admission. When it spoke, people listened. This examination has revealed something I did not expect, Orthix began, its voice resonating through multiple frequencies. We designed this test to measure survival instinct, the ability of a species to persist in hostile conditions. We believed we understood what survival meant. Conserve resources, minimize risk, endure until the threat passes. Orthix turned toward the human team. Then we encountered humans, and they showed us that our understanding was incomplete. The sage mind gestured and a new display activated. It showed Earth, the small blue planet rotating peacefully in space. But the image zoomed in, showing Earth's violent history. Ice ages that covered continents. Volcanic eruptions that darkened skies for years. Asteroid impacts that caused mass extinctions. Climate shifts that destroyed ecosystems. Earth is classified as a Class 7 world, Orthix continued. Moderately challenging, but stable enough for civilization to develop. Except that classification is wrong. Earth is not a stable Class 7 world. Earth is a Class 7 world that regularly spikes to Class 9 conditions. It has done so throughout its history. The species that evolved there did not develop on a safe world. They developed between catastrophes. The display showed human history, early humans spreading across continents during ice ages, building civilizations in volcanic regions, surviving plagues that killed millions, rebuilding after disasters that would have ended other species. The Krell optimize, Orthix said. They create perfect systems that work efficiently in known conditions. The Vexor endure. They reduce themselves to the minimum necessary to outlast any threat. Both are valid survival strategies. Both have served their species well for millions of years. Orthix paused, and the display showed the humans laughing in their shelter during the super eruption. But humans do something different. They do not merely avoid death. They challenge it. They mock it. They find joy despite it. When we asked them to survive a death world, they turned it into a home. When we offered them extraction from a planetary catastrophe, they declined because they believed they could handle it. And they were right. The ancient sage mind addressed the entire assembly now. This exam was never truly about survival. It was about how a species faces extinction. How do you respond when everything is trying to kill you? The Krell responded by optimizing their cooperation. The Vexor responded by maximizing their endurance. Both survived until conditions exceeded their capacity. The humans responded by living. They did not just survive Karsoth 7, they explored it. They studied it. They made jokes about it. They gave their base a name. They found moments of happiness in a volcanic hell, and when the planet tried to kill them with a super eruption, they calculated where to stand, refused evacuation, and laughed as the world exploded around them. Orthix turned back to Jiho. Hana and Doyen, you scored lowest on efficiency metrics. You used more energy than necessary. You took risks that seemed illogical. By traditional survival analysis, you made many mistakes. Jiho felt Hana tense beside him, waiting for the criticism. But you are still here, Orthix continued. You survived conditions that exceeded our worst projections. You adapted to changes that destroyed the strategies of older, more experienced species. You maintained psychological health in circumstances designed to break the mind. You did not just endure 30 days on a death world. You thrived there. The sage mind's voice grew stronger. The Krell survived through efficiency. The Vexer survived through endurance. But humans survive through joy, through laughter in the face of death, through giving ridiculous names to survival shelters, through asking if they get bonus points for style, and that strategy, as illogical as it seems, is devastatingly effective. Veltharin stepped forward to deliver the official evaluation. By unanimous decision of the Examination Council, all 3 teams have passed the Centennial Survival Examination. The Krell team demonstrated exceptional coordination under pressure. The Vexer team showed remarkable endurance. And the human team, she paused. The human team showed us that we did not fully understand what survival means. The assembly erupted in sounds. Clicking mandibles, rumbling growls, chiming resonances from dozens of species. Some in approval, some in confusion, some in what might have been respect. Jiho stepped forward to accept the commendation on behalf of his team. Proctor Veltharin handed him a crystal containing the official pass certification and asked, "Do you have any words for the assembly, Cadet Jiho?" Jiho looked at Hana and Doyun, then at the crowd of alien species watching them. He thought about Karsoth 7, about the volcanic hell they had turned into a home, about the bacteria paste they had eaten for 23 days, about laughing during a super eruption because they had calculated where to stand. Survival is not about living through the worst day, Jiho said. It is about living for the best day. We did not survive Karsoth 7 despite having fun. We survived because we had fun. When everything is trying to kill you, you have 2 choices. Give up or give it hell. He paused, a smile spreading across his ash-stained face. So, about those style points? The assembly exploded with noise again. The Krill instructor still looked confused. The Krell captain's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. The Vexer commander's scales rippled in colors that indicated respect. But Orthix simply nodded. The ancient being had seen hundreds of species join the galactic community. Most were efficient. Some were strong. A few were brilliant. But humans were something new. They were joyful survivors, creatures who looked at impossible odds and laughed. As the humans left the assembly hall, Hana nudged Jiho. You know what the interesting part is? We technically scored lowest on almost every efficiency metric. We are going to be used in academy textbooks as examples of what not to do. Doyen laughed. Yes, but we will be in the chapter titled, Somehow They Survived. I can live with that, Jiho said. Behind them, in the academy archives, Orthix updated humanity's official file. The entry that had once read Class 7 World Species, Survival Capability, Moderate, now read something very different. Humanity, Survival Capability Exceptional, Adaptation Speed, Unprecedented, Psychological Resilience, Extreme, Threat Assessment, they turn death worlds into homes. Never underestimate them. Notable characteristics. Humans possess what they call humor, which appears to function as a survival mechanism. When facing extinction-level threats, they make jokes. When offered evacuation from planetary catastrophe, they decline to prove a point. When asked about bonus points for style, they are completely serious. The file concluded with a warning. Note, humans have a saying that translates as, hold my beer. Linguistic analysis suggests this phrase indicates the human is about to attempt something dangerous and impressive. If you hear this phrase, evacuate the area and observe from a safe distance. Something explosive or impossible or both is about to occur. Do not attempt to stop them. It will not work. 3 days later, after medical evaluations and debriefing sessions and celebration ceremonies, Jiho stood on an observation deck overlooking the academy campus. Thousands of students from hundreds of species moved below, pursuing their education among the stars. Hana joined him carrying 2 containers of actual food. Real food, not bacteria paste. You know, the supply officer said we are famous now? Students from 6 different species have asked if they can interview us about survival strategies. What did you tell them? Jiho asked, accepting the food gratefully. I told them that we do not have strategies. We just make it up as we go. That is not entirely true, Doyen said, arriving with his own food. We do have a strategy. Be stubborn. Stay curious. Keep laughing. Find joy even in hell. That is not a strategy, Hana argued. That is just being human. Exactly, Jiho said. And it turns out being human is enough. They stood together, 3 young people from Earth who had survived a volcanic death world through math and laughter and stubborn refusal to give up. They had proven something to the galaxy. Not that humans were the strongest or the most efficient or the most resilient. They had proven that humans were human, and sometimes that was exactly what survival required. On the horizon, a transport ship was arriving with new students. Among them would be more humans, eager young people from Earth ready to prove themselves among the stars. They would face challenges and prejudice and doubt. They would hear stories about the 3 humans who survived Karsoth 7 and laughed during a super eruption. And they would learn what Jiho, Hana, and Doyen had discovered, that humanity's greatest strength was not in being the best at any one thing. It was in refusing to be broken, in finding light in darkness, in asking for style points when survival should be enough. The galaxy was vast and ancient and full of species who had mastered survival through various strategies: efficiency, endurance, adaptation, cooperation. All valid, all effective. But now the galaxy had humans, and humans survived through something the ancient species had forgotten or never learned: joy in the face of death, laughter in the middle of catastrophe, the absolute stubborn refusal to let impossible odds steal their humanity. Jiho raised his container of real food in a toast. To Volcano View Resort, may it stand as a monument to human stupidity and human stubbornness. Both of which kept us alive, Hana added. Both of which will always keep us alive, Doyen finished. They ate their food and watched the stars and knew that they had changed something fundamental in how the galaxy viewed Earth. Humans were no longer the young species from the weak world. They were the species that turned death worlds into homes. And somewhere in the Academy archives, Orthix added one final note to humanity's file. Personal observation. I have studied over 400 species in my lifetime. I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations. I have witnessed extinction events and golden ages. But I have never seen a species quite like humanity. They should not work. Their strategies are inefficient. Their risk tolerance is illogical. Their tendency to find humor in life-threatening situations defies all survival instinct theory. And yet they work. They survive. They thrive. They turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth, every threat into a puzzle to solve, every catastrophe into a story they will tell with laughter years later. The galaxy asked them to survive. They asked for style points. In retrospect, they earned them. The file was sealed, filed, and would be studied by xenobiologists and survival theorists for generations. The humans who had survived Karsoth 7 would become legend. Their methods would be analyzed, debated, and ultimately, never fully understood by species who had not evolved between catastrophes. But that was fine. Humans did not need to be understood. They just needed to keep being human. Keep laughing. Keep pushing forward. Keep asking impossible questions and finding impossible answers. Keep surviving with style. And that was exactly what they would do.